Hey everybody, we are Francis, Martin, and Robert, and this is Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready, we're about to live in your head rent-free. Welcome back to Snakes and Otters. This is episode 35.
I'm Martin.
I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis. We're going to talk about pop culture again today, and we're inaugurating one of those occasional themes that will come back to us that we come up with. Movies we always have to watch. I've been waiting a long time for this one, guys.
I always have to watch. I mean, like, we're flipping channels.
Yep.
When we come across the movie, it's like, oh, doesn't matter what else we were doing.
That's exactly right. This is beyond just
5 minutes into it or 5 minutes from the end. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. This is more than just favorite movies. Of course, these are favorite movies, but we have lots of favorite movies. But these rise above that to a certain level because we probably know them well. It's just, dang, this is good. We're going to go with that. And we've got a few that we've picked out here.
And they also, generally, I think this time around anyway, might not be those movies that everybody knows about.
Yeah,
you might have heard of it.
Sure.
But it's
none of the ones we've picked this time are exception. They're not all that recent.
Mine certainly aren't.
Actually, the most recent one we have is 1970. The one I'm going to start off with was 1970. Everything else is prior to that. So a lot of folks may have never seen these movies. But you really
mine
should.
Mine is a little newer than that. Mine is 1988.
Oh, that's right. That's correct. That's right. Yeah, that's right. So, but still, though,
that's still a 30-year-old movie.
It's still a 30-year-old movie. That's correct. And there's
I feel old now. I'm gonna have to go into retirement.
Yeah,
moving to Florida, boys.
That's right. Yeah. Can we have your car?
No.
But yeah, you're gonna have fun with this, and I'm just gonna roll this one right out, just like I'm rolling out a baseball here. My first movie, and this is one of our favorite movies. Throw out a baseball. That's correct. I'm going to throw this one out here like a hand grenade.
Just
roll the
yay sports.
That's right.
Sports.
Sorry.
Roll the bowling ball.
Throw the baseball.
Fine. All right. But my favorite movie that I am going to talk about here that I always have to watch, and I know this one hits you guys too because we talk about it all the time. 1970, Clint Eastwood, Telly Savalas, Donald Sutherland, Kelly's Heroes.
Awesome movie.
Awesome movie.
It is one of the greatest.
It's an amazing movie. It is one of the... It's a war movie that gets turned on its head. Mm-hmm. This is still at a time when war movies were in the ascendancy.
Really?
But starting to be shaped by the experience of Vietnam.
Correct.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be very many years after this. Patton is one of the last ones where all of a sudden war movies after that go away. But we're still there. We haven't quite left yet. The glory days of World War II in the movies is still very much in people's minds.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 years after The Dirty Dozen.
Exactly. There's a lot of those type movies out there. So it was always
the last good war for movies.
Yeah.
Well, until they started getting artistic about the Vietnam War and others. But you know what I mean.
But this is a very straightforward film. It's a comedy, sort of. It's an action adventure, sort of. It's a drama, not so much.
It's a heist movie.
It's a heist movie,
yeah.
This is long before I think the original version of Ocean's 11 had been done.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But that's exactly what this is. This is a heist movie put into a war movie. But it's
farce.
It's got those moments in it. It's got some great comedic talent in it. Clint Eastwood's presence at this point made it more of a serious war picture. I think that's how they sold it.
Yeah. That
Clint Eastwood wants to do this. And he's in 1970, he's a big enough name. He's done a few westerns. The Man with No Name and all that stuff's already behind him. Josie Wales is in the future. But he's a bankable star at this point.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other bankable stars in this movie.
That's correct. Telly Savalas, he's extremely well known. This is pre-Kojak.
Yes.
But just pre-Kojak. He'd done On Her Majesty's Secret Service. He'd done several other movies. In fact,
Don Rickles.
Don Rickles, who was unbelievably... He plays it straight. But you can't...
No.
Don Rickles, even when he plays it straight, is still funny.
It's funny. Yeah, he's a funny guy.
He just does that. It's the way he is. He's a fantastic guy. And although my favorite character, and I suspect it's probably your all's favorite character, is Oddball.
Oh, yes.
Donald Sutherland. Donald Sutherland is amazing in this movie. That's your other dog impersonation. That's right. Fantastic. It really made that goofiness that come out, that it wasn't just the same war movie you'd seen 16 million times over the past 20 years.
Because the story...
It's a buddy film.
It's a buddy... Yes, exactly. Those are great films.
It hits all the genres.
Yeah. So, do you want to hit a little bit more on the story?
Well, I mean,
story to
it's
it?
really pretty simple. That they discover that there's 200 and some odd $1 million worth of gold in a bank behind enemy lines, and as Don Rickles would say, it's the perfect heist, the perfect crime. Where they discover we can, because our commanding officer is an idiot, and we're on the front lines. We're just going to kind of skip a bit, go back, and rob the bank.
Keep going.
Keep going.
They go, was it some 30 miles into German-held territory?
Exactly. And of course, when the general, Carol O'Connor, finds out about it, Maitland, give me my uniform, they follow in.
Yeah.
It's just, it's
Then
so...
it's a race to get to this town.
That's right.
It's a snapshot of the hardship of the common soldier at the hands of officers who might not really know the job very well.
You're very kind.
Yeah.
Yes.
The officers here are the idiots.
Yeah.
And only... Kel-
And it's important. Kelly is an ex-officer.
that is correct. He's one of the... And the reason he couldn't hack it there is because he's too honest, capable, whatever.
Yeah.
He and Telly
He wouldn't
Savalas...
take any crap.
That's correct. Yeah, he and Telly Savalas come across as the guys that have it together.
Yeah.
And Telly Savalas plays Big Joe. He's the NCO. He's the sergeant. He's the one that...
He's the career guy.
Exactly, and he's very, very good at it.
Well, he's the guy that's responsible for keeping all of them alive,
That's correct.
and that's why he doesn't want to go.
That's right.
It's like,
But
Kelly,
he-
you've sold these guys on something, and you're gonna send them into the chopping block.
That's right, and not all of them come back, but most do. There's very few that actually
Yeah.
they don't show a lot of that. They show some, and that's the beauty of this movie is because
All the main characters live, though.
they do. That is correct, and it's a fun movie.
It really is. There is so much to love about this movie. If you hadn't picked this would have been, if not this one, in a later version of this.
We always have to. I mean,
That-
it truly
that's-
is one you got to stop and watch.
It's
Oddball's coming on the screen here in a minute.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's goofy and yet it's fun. Hank Williams Jr. They play a song of his while they're shooting down Germans coming out of a tunnel, and you're thinking, how long is this going to go on? But it works. It absolutely works, and it's just so fun. I think the best line in the whole darn thing is the fact about the negative waves.
Yeah,
always the negative waves.
Always with the
Moriarty.
negative waves, Moriarty.
I had nothing but good thoughts about that bridge.
Well, we've done a couple of other. I mean, we do the have a little faith, baby.
Absolutely, have a little faith.
Yeah, it's a little 60s, but it still
works.
Yeah,
it still works. Donald Sutherland, he was a young guy at the time.
Yeah, all these guys were young.
Well, that's
I mean, even
true.
Telly Savalas was young
Yes,
for the
he was.
what we think of
Yeah,
today.
I mean, this is Donald Sutherland even before Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
It is, that's right.
Before Animal House.
Harry Dean Stanton is young in this movie.
Harry Dean Stanton was never young.
Good point.
That's right.
But yeah, he's good in it. And what is the name of the other fellow that's in it? That's so funny. The one that plays Cowboy.
Oh yes,
He's been in a handful of other things.
He's a good
that are
character
really funny.
guy, yeah.
Yes,
character actor.
exactly.
Carol O'Connor was phenomenal in this.
General Colt. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so. Yeah, he was. This was pre All in the Family.
Oh, by a huge stretch.
Yeah, exactly. So he was
Great comedic chops in this.
That's great. Shows that he does really good. It's just that good. It's one of those movies. If you get it, you grab a pizza
Anybody
and stay
born
for the
before
day.
1990s going, who the hell are all these people they're talking about?
It's worth looking up. It's
really
a
is.
fun
It's fun.
movie.
Yeah.
It gets the plot right. It's believable. It's well
Mostly.
made. Yeah, most of the way. You can suspend. You don't have to worry about suspending a lot of disbelief. Most of it all, because the story is so well written. Ultimately,
Yes.
that's where these things stand or fall. Every one of these movies we're talking about, it's the story that makes them.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're so fun.
All right, what do you got, Martin?
Well, my first one is in a very similar vein, but it's a little older, a little different comedic sensibility. I like Navy movies,
Oh yeah,
and this is one of my favorites. It's Operation Petticoat. It's a story of a World War II submarine at the very basically at the very moment war is declared. It is sunk at the dock in the Philippines, and the commanding officer has to raise it and get it out of port as quickly as he can. and a lot of his crew's already been reassigned, so he takes on an officer who is not really,
Officer material.
somebody that's really out there at sea.
Yeah.
He's an admiral's aide, mostly because he's a good dancer, and he wins the Rumba championship with the admiral's wife. But he's also a scrounger. He actually grew up this kind of modest background, and so it's got all his great parts about scavenging. They have to scavenge paint after they raise the submarine, and they don't have enough of the white primer or the red primer to coat the whole submarine, so they have to mix them and paint the submarine pink. So that might be what you remember. If you've ever heard of the movie that's got a pink submarine, this is it.
There's actually a TV show based on this for a little while as well.
Yes, the stars are Cary Grant and Tony Curtis. And, of course, one of the stars of the TV show 20 years later in the 70s would be Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, that's right.
That's right, his daughter, yeah.
But it has a cast member in common with Kelly's Heroes in Gavin MacLeod.
That's right.
Very famous.
Moriarty and Kelly's Heroes.
Kelly's
And
Heroes.
they do have nurses on this. So that's part of it. They're evacuating.
Yes, they have
nurses.
to pick out nurses from an island. Again, everything's in chaos. It's December 1941. Everything's in chaos. They have to take these nurses aboard. Then they end up taking these families aboard, and women having babies on the submarine. And the upshot is Tokyo Rose puts out a broadcast about this pink submarine. The American authorities hear about this and decide, look, no American would paint a submarine pink. It must be some kind of trick. The Japanese are trying to sneak something by us.
Yeah.
If you spot a pink submarine, sink it. And they end up, in order to get the American cruiser to stop depth charging them, they have to send up all of the nurses' underwear. So they have to gaff hook a bra out of the ocean, and the officer on board the cruiser says, the Japanese have nothing like this. They have to stop, cease fire. And it's kind of a quaint little 50s movie.
Very wholesome in its own way.
Yeah, Cary Grant's just hysterical. It's one of those where it has some slapstick, but it also builds the humor through the dialogue.
Yeah,
which I always love.
It's well written. Yes.
Yeah, that kind of that Gilmore Girls type of quick banter, back and forth.
That's a hallmark of Cary Grant.
Yeah, it is.
That is his specialty.
Yeah. And again, there's a scene, Tony Curtis and Gavin MacLeod, Seaman Hunkle, they go off up in the hills, and they're not supposed to be, of course, looting anything in the Philippines, but they steal a farmer's pig, and they put his coat over it, and it's dark, and they get stopped by MPs, and they manage to sell that the pig is a sailor that's on he's drunk off the stuff in the torpedoes. And they managed to get by the MPs and get down to the sub and have a big New Year's Eve pig roast with the nurses. So it's great stuff. I love Operation Petticoat. I always stop and watch. I have it on disc and everything, but I still watch, and it's just like, this is such a fun, cute. I mean, that's not the right word, but just. Nobody makes a movie like that anymore.
It's fun. It's funny. It's a good story. It's not dirty.
Right.
It's not offensive anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be some remnants of, some stereotypical portrayal of men and women, but it would have been true to the time.
Yeah. Well, they have to explain to the nurses how to use the head, which is a little, awkward. And the nurse that becomes enamored with Cary Grant is... What's the term we should be using here? Huge tracts of land.
Busty.
Busty, yes, buxom, I believe.
Buxom. Yes.
Well endowed, Nurse Crandall. So that kind of feeds into the comedy.
Yes, because they're always having to pass each other in the narrow hallways.
In the narrow passages.
Yeah.
And he tells Cary Grant tells the exec, give Nurse Crandall plenty of space.
Yes.
Pass it on to the crew. Nurse Crandall? Well, give her plenty of room.
Such as it is.
So,
Robert, yours. Let's have your first one.
So my first one, and this is probably my second favorite Cary Grant film. I've got it DVR'd whenever it comes on.
Yes, sir.
And I've got it on disc, and I got my son to watch it with me. It took me forever to get the boy to watch black and white.
I was going to say, at a certain age, they won't touch it. Yeah.
Because to him, that was just old-fashioned. You know, there's nothing.
Can't be
interesting
anything
there.
good there.
It's old.
Yep.
So first one is His Girl Friday. It's
Oh,
Cary
yes.
Grant. He's a newspaper editor.
Cary Grant.
She's his ex-wife, and she's come to tell him that she's getting remarried to Bruce Baldwin, and they're going to go off to Buffalo, and she's going to become a housewife, and he sells insurance, and it is just some of the best comedy. I mean, this is screwball farce kind of comedy, not slapstick physical comedy
Yeah.
like you think of with Lucille Ball or the Marx Brothers, right?
Right.
But it's from that era. It's black and white, and it is just, there was one scene where they're in his office when she first comes to see him, and there's just a lot of back and forth. And this one take, it's like 4 or 5 minutes. That's unheard of in movies.
Yeah.
And it's them back and forth, just shotgun line after shotgun line, boom, 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 boom. And Rosalind Russell plays his ex-wife.
Yeah.
And it is just phenomenal. To me, it's just some of the best comedy. It is so well written. Like Operation Petticoat, it's just fun.
Yeah.
And whenever I see it, I stop and watch it because there's just so many great bits in this. And Rosalind Russell, she's not known for her comedic chops, but she's phenomenal in this, especially against Cary Grant. She holds her own.
Grant's
Because
one of the
he plays
greatest
this cynical newspaper editor who would sell his own mother to get a scoop. And he plays that really well. And he's half mobster because he's got this really shady guy working for him that sabotages her trying to get out of town. Because she's trying to get out of town, and he talks her into doing this story. And he just puts this obstacle after obstacle in her way because he knows she's, as he puts it, she's a newspaper man. She can't leave that to be a housewife in Buffalo. And of course, she ends up not doing that.
Okay, there you go.
And they end up getting back together. But no spoiler. If you haven't seen it by now, too bad. It's no spoilers. But it is just so much fun.
It's one of those really good. I don't know. Again, the boy girl comedy, kind of not a rom com, but I guess it sort of is.
Of its day, it would probably be. Yeah,
it's kind of those. I like the Rock Hudson, Doris Day ones too.
Yeah, those are good.
It's of that same type of movie, I would say.
Sort of. Although I find some of the ones in the black and white are a little more interesting in this way. Just like with this one, she holds her own. She is her own person.
Yes.
Doris Day does not come off as... She comes off as the... too much the innocent ingenue without any real idea of self.
Right.
And that's probably being unfair to some of the movies that she did, but the ones that come to mind, the roles she's had. In fact, she did one with Cary Grant. Mm-hmm. And she was very much that way, because he was the sophisticated man who was trying to seduce her. Of course, he would have been much older than her at the time. But Rosalind Russell is just, she's very much her own person. She deals with him head on. Mm-mm. Now, he still gets the better of it because he's just that character.
He's Cary Grant.
Because he's Cary Grant.
That's right.
But, in the sense that that boy girl, but in these movies, like there's one Philadelphia Experiment, or no, Bringing Up Baby. Well, Philadelphia Experiment too, I think has Katharine Hepburn. She's definitely in Bringing Up Baby, mm-hmm. and she holds her own too. He is flummoxed by her in many ways, and some of that same thing with Rosalind Russell in this. It's a bit more equals in that, and that's. For that time, that's a little unheard of.
Lots of good repartee.
Oh my God, yes.
And that's what makes this such a great movie.
Yeah, it is such a great movie. Such a great
script.
Great
dialogue goes a long way.
It does.
Yeah.
Really engaging.
I think this was originally a play, too.
Probably.
And, when I think about the sets, very because there's 2 main sets.
Yeah.
And it very easily could have been a play. It would have been a great play. That's probably why that one scene that's like 4 or 5 minutes is so good, because you had to have done that in a single take.
Yeah.
Most movies today, scenes are like 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. before they move on to something else, and or certainly camera angle and setting.
Right.
Things change so quickly. So for something like that, it's just it's a testament to the skill of those involved.
What are we drinking, guys? I don't even know.
I just finished up a little bit of Devil's Cut, which I think we.
That's what I've.
I had the last time
go
we-
around.
Yeah.
That's what I grabbed and.
I think I'm going to move on to some Basil Hayden though.
Oh, always good. Always good. Yes, we've.
Here, why don't you get that bottle?
grab
over
that.
there?
Grab that bottle here, sir. Mr. Howard, the bottle stand is near you.
Yes, the Basil Hayden, which of course is has family ties.
Correct.
To
Yes,
Francis.
it's my fifth great grandfather.
Yes, I have to remember that because every time I see it somewhere, I
Yeah.
always play that up.
Well, sure,
You know-
it's kind of cool. Now, me and thousands of other people, of course, but
Well, that doesn't matter.
well,
I don't know those thousands of other people.
well, that's true. So it's kind of nice to be able to know that this dude.
Now this one will be neat because I don't have any ice down here anymore.
Yeah, I've still got a little bit of the Devil's Cut, so I'm gonna cork this bad boy right back and save it for a few more minutes later. But kind of as a palate cleanse, because
Yes.
my next movie is very different than what we've done here. Mine, and we just kind of came upon this by accident. We were just kind of discussing what we wanted to do before this, and the subject of it came up. We were talking about Michelangelo, The Agony and the Ecstasy.
Oh, phenomenal movie.
Yes, with Charlton Heston, who we'll call Chuck, because that's how he liked to be called, was Chuck.
That's right.
And Rex Harrison. It is an amazing testament and testimony to the greatness of Michelangelo, but it encapsulates it down into a consumable way, because it's all about the Sistine Chapel.
Yes.
You don't really now. There's like a 12-minute prelude at the beginning of it that you can see that talks about Michelangelo and his art, the sculptor who did not want to paint. That it was shown in theaters. If you've got the DVD, you can see it. Ted Turner often shows this. He's got the rights to it on Turner Classic Movies, and he shows the full letterbox version. So you get those 12 minutes at the beginning, and it's amazing. Modern audiences wouldn't stand for that.
No.
They're not going to. It's a
Not
documentary.
enough explosions.
That's exactly right. Well, there's really none in this movie.
Well, not until Pope Julius goes to war.
That's true. There's a little bit of that.
There is some battle scenes.
Well,
in
and
this,
which were inserted in there because it is just people talking mostly in painting.
Yeah, it's the Pope yelling at Buonarroti, "When will you make it end?"
That's the moment, which he says, like 16 times to this movie, and it's a it's a battle of wills in many respect that is only pulled off because you've got Charlton Heston and Rex Harrison going at it with each other.
Yes.
I don't. Rex Harrison was actually, they had somebody else in mind. I don't remember who it was, but he's the kind of the one they settled on to go against Charlton Heston, who had always wanted to play the role. It was based on a book that was really popular at the time. Irving Stone's book. That's exactly it. It was that adaptation. It's filmed mostly in Italy. A lot of Italian stars on it. Adolfo Celli plays in it, who was Emilio Largo in Thunderball.
Thunderball, my favorite Bond movie.
Absolutely, and as well as Diane Cilento, who ironically was the first Mrs. Sean Connery. There's a couple Bond connections through there. But it was amazing how they were able to. They actually filmed in the Sistine Chapel partially to show this great work, and how Michelangelo didn't want to do it. You don't even get to the Sistine Chapel until the second half.
Right, that's the amazing thing.
Yeah.
Well, he's being directed in what to do,
That's right.
which he bristles at as well.
That's right.
He just wants to do his art.
Yeah, he wants to sculpt, and you see him there talking about how for him sculpting was, these images were already contained in the marble. He mentions this, and he just cuts away the missing pieces. The screenwriter builds that in because Michelangelo is supposed to have said that, and it's a transformation, and Charlton Heston pulls it off about, I don't want to do this, I'm going to run away. He even runs away to Carrara, and they finally, in the mountains of Carrara where he's hiding from the Pope, he has this vision in the clouds, and all of a sudden he sees what this chapel should look like. It was
and he
much.
has to then sell.
That's right, because
Julius
it's much
on that
greater.
vision.
Because as he says, Julius, your idea, your Holiness, your idea was poor. Which goes over very well, but it's when but he does, and because he's in the midst of a battle when they're sitting there planning all this stuff, and he says, he wants a ceiling. No, he plans a miracle, which he does, and he does
Right.
most of it by himself.
Right, he has assistants, obviously, but it is his work.
And they even show how it almost kills him because he goes blurry vision blinded, falls, and has to be nursed back to health for a while, and by Diane Cilento.
Not all bad.
Not all bad. That's correct.
She's purty.
She is. She's an amazing lady, and she's the one that. And she comes across Condotina de Medici as her, like you talked about in your movie, like Rosalind Russell. She's her own person. Mm-hmm. She is one of the Medicis. She commands extreme authority and power here. She's able to send away the Pope's physicians because they want to bleed him. She says, no, we don't do that. We follow the Moorish healers. Go on, bye-bye. And it's just one of those moments where Julius he almost dies, so does Michelangelo, and in the end, after all this, it's a long movie. Modern audiences would have a hard time sitting through it, I think.
Although they sat through Endgame.
This is true. This is a very good. There's an intermission in this. If you see the full version, there's actually an intermission.
Yeah, they don't do that sort of stuff
exactly.
anymore.
So those long epic movies did. It was one of the later epic movies. This is 63, I believe it is. But wow.
No, it's later. It's later than that.
Yeah, it's not much later.
It's 5 or 6 years after he does like El Cid or something, isn't it?
I didn't think it was quite that much. It's before he would have done. It's after El Cid. It's before Fall of the Roman Empire, which Chuck was supposed to do.
Yeah.
But when he found out Sophia Loren was in it, he says, no. I've done this. I don't want to do it. I don't like her. So it's between those two.
Imagine that. You're a big enough star that you can turn down starring in a movie with Sophia Loren.
Yeah. And
so it predates like 60 or 55 Days of Peking.
It does, yeah.
It predates Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah, that was 68, yeah. 69. So it's just that great. And wherever you pick it up at, the visuals that you bring, because it really is a celebration of Michelangelo's art.
Yes.
And his person and what it took to do what they did. And that's why I have to always watch it all the way through to the end.
Cool.
Yes.
Cool.
To me, that's a phenomenal one because, as I said, Michelangelo is my all-time favorite. He is the one that really gets me.
I learned Michelangelo from that movie.
Yeah.
I learned him as a person because he was too big to get my arms around. He just did so many things. But I feel like I know him now, thanks to Charlton Heston.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So, my second movie is another Cary Grant. And I think this may be my all-time favorite movie, period. Got a lot of nostalgia for me. It's Arsenic and Old Lace.
Oh, yes.
This is probably the quintessential farce.
Mm-hmm. Based on a play, wasn't it?
Also based on a play. A lot of movies from the 30s were plays that were filmed.
Yeah.
Just because plays were the movies of the day. And so it was a natural thing to take plays that were successful and make films out of them.
Or even unsuccessful. I mean,
or even unsuccessful.
Casablanca was an unproduced play.
Right.
Everybody Comes to Rick's.
So in this movie, you've got Mortimer, and that's Cary Grant. And he comes home, and he finds out that his two maiden aunts have been murdering lonely old men and burying them in the basement. And so he's about to get married, and he then tries to push off his fiancée because he's worried that insanity runs in the family. Right. Because then his older brother, who is Boris Karloff, played by Boris Karloff, and they make a joke about him looking like Boris Karloff, but that was because of plastic surgery by a very bad plastic surgeon who's played by, what's the little guy's name? With the whiny voice. You know who I'm talking about. Oh my gosh, he's been in so many. He was even in a Bugs Bunny character.
Peter Lorre?
Yes, Peter Lorre.
Thank you. Peter Lorre.
Wow,
yes.
Well, that one right out of what?
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, see?
I didn't look that up, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
I just kind of went there.
I knew you'd get it when I said Bugs Bunny.
That's correct. That's right.
Peter Lorre plays his sidekick. And just the internet. Oh, and then there's a guy who thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt. So there's all kinds of insanity in the family. The brother that looks like Boris Karloff, Jonathan, he is criminally insane. You've got the guy who thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt. He's literally insane. Thinks he's somebody else, and he yells "Charge!" and goes running up the stairs and into his room and slams the door. And whenever they bury a body in the basement, he goes down to dig another lock in the canal. And
yes.
This whole movie is just one funny, farcical bit after another of Mortimer trying to deal with the fact that his aunt and his two aunts are homicidal crazies and trying to get them shipped off to the loony bin. He finds out that he's adopted in the end, so he doesn't have to worry about the insanity, and he goes off and he marries this very pretty bride. But to me, it is just so damn funny. I got my son to watch this one with me too. He loved it. He actually laughed out loud.
Sure, it's fantastic.
So this was the movie that broke the log jam on him watching black and white. Now, he's still not going to go out of his way to do it, but how often do you find black and white on television anymore anyways? But when I suggest watching one, he's far more willing to do it than he used
to. If you've got Turner Classic Movies, you'll see quite a few.
Turner Classic is my favorite channel.
Yeah, I think you would like the Thin Man movies.
Oh, yes. Those are some great ones. I could have put one of those down on my list of movies I always got to watch.
Yeah, because I haven't watched a ton of those, but I know William Powell's very good.
William Powell and Myrna Loy, they weren't married, but they should have been. They are phenomenal.
They just do a great job together. Yeah, sometimes you get those pairings.
Movies in the 30s. You know, I picked two movies that are from the late 30s, early 40s. I think both of these might be in the 40s. But, you know, before the end of World War II, basically. Really before you get to the 50s. Movies are just different.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little more wholesome for the most part. You know, there's not all this swearing. There's not lots of sex. It's implied in a lot of cases.
Oh, yeah.
Some of it can be very risque. There was one movie I watched. I wish I could remember the name of it. The girl who was in it, I didn't know who she was at the time, and I can't remember who she was now, but relative unknown. She was gorgeous, absolutely stunningly beautiful, and she got knocked up because she got drunk at a party.
Wow.
And it's about the soldier who was going off to war that married her to keep her from, being shamed out of town. And that was very risque for the time.
Yeah, you didn't
they didn't show any of it, but, it was kind of very hinted at first. And it's like, that she was pregnant, but she got knocked up. She didn't know who she had sex with. And
that's
that's very, but it was a funny movie. It's incredibly funny. But these kind of movies, to me, they're just partly it's the nostalgia from watching them as a kid. I was not a kid when they first came out.
No.
But I watched them on the independent stations in Michigan. So it'd be Channel 20 and Channel 50. Some of the ABC, NBC, CBS stations late at night would play some of these movies, or on weekends. And so for me, I watched a lot of these as a kid on these. I watched the Bowery Boys. And and before they were the Bowery Boys, the East End Kids.
The Bowery Boys, my sister watched the Bowery Boys.
Abbott and Costello on Sunday morning.
Yeah,
I've got two Abbott and Costello on my list.
Practically every guy will tell you he watched the Three Stooges.
Three Stooges.
All through childhood.
Three Stooges.
Women hate the Three Stooges.
The Blondie movies.
Yes. Oh, yes. I forgot about those.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I don't remember watching any of those. But
I got some of them. I'll have to show them to you.
I remember them being on. They used to do Channel 3 at the movies, the afternoon movies, Channel 3 afternoon movies here locally in Louisville, and they would show, it's a 2 hours. They cut the heck out of them to get them in 2 hours. But those were a lot of those type of movies you'd show, where they're later 60s, early 60s stuff like that. They wouldn't do a lot of black and whites. That's where I saw Horror of Dracula, the Hammer movie, which absolutely scared the bejeebus out of my little sister. She still talks about it. All I have to do is go up to her and say Horror of Dracula, and then she still freaks, even 40 years later.
So, these movies, to me, they're just so much fun because they're so pure, I guess.
There's an innocence to them.
Yeah. Even when they're dealing with the girl who gets knocked up, or trying to get this guy who murdered somebody off of, which is part of what's in his Gal Friday, or his Girl Friday. It's just fun stuff. You don't have to take it seriously. It doesn't delve on political issues, because back then you couldn't do that. There wasn't outright censorship because it was all done by choice. The studio self-censored.
Right.
So there wasn't a whole lot of controversial material, and in a way, by today's audience standards, that's almost impossible to do. You can't be good unless you're controversial.
Yeah.
But they proved that you can.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, it's just fun. It's pure entertainment. I don't have to think about it. It's an escape, and I enjoy it. And I can watch it and really appreciate good acting. Comedy is hard.
Yes.
It is.
Comedy
You know,
is harder than
actors.
You
drama.
picked one of the greats too. Cary Grant is just one of the absolute. You can watch him do anything.
That's right.
He was that good.
Cary Grant is not only a great comedic actor, he's a great dramatic actor. He's better known probably for the comedies,
Yeah.
but later in life he did far more, well, maybe not far more, but he did more serious stuff
He did the
as he got
Hitchcock
older.
stuff, yeah.
North by Northwest.
North by Northwest, absolutely.
What was the one where he's in Paris and the...
To Catch a Thief?
No, it's earlier than that. Somebody is after... oh my gosh, it's the one with Hepburn? Not Catherine, the other Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey
Breakfast
Hepburn.
at Tiffany's.
It's
No, it's early. No, it's Mr. Is it Mr. Nobody?
No, I can't remember, but
Yeah,
he's...
see here.
Anyways, it's in it, and it's got Lee Marvin in it,
Oh yeah.
and it's some really good stuff, and he's serious, and it's just, as he gets older, he could do both. And when he was younger, he was known for the screwball comedies, but he's just phenomenal.
I Was a Male War Bride.
Yes!
Another funny one.
Oh
that
my
he
gosh,
was
that's
in,
great.
Was terrific in. So, if you don't know anything about Cary Grant, you need to go get
He is a
these
national
movies
treasure.
off of Netflix and
That's
watch
right.
Operation Petticoat. Watch Arsenic and Old Lace. Watch I Was a Male War Bride. They're hysterical.
They are. They are. Bringing Up Baby, the Philadelphia Story. There's Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House.
Oh yes, my gosh, there's so many of these.
Oh my god, yeah, so many. So that was my two.
So my second one, final one, is a substantial departure from all of those.
Yeah.
Because it is one where the comedy is a little more raw. It is a little more based in that rawness. And it's 1988's Midnight Run. Robert De Niro in a comedic role, really for the first time. And Charles Grodin,
Oh yeah.
one of those guys. It's a lot like a Cary Grant, where based on that repartee, that dialogue, that fast talking. Grodin plays a fugitive. He's a mob accountant who stole money from a vicious Chicago mobster played by Dennis Farina, who's also terrific. I always love Dennis Farina.
Yeah.
And he has skipped bail. And Robert De Niro plays the bounty hunter that goes after him. And it turns into a cross-country trek because he has to get him from New York to Los Angeles before a certain deadline or the bail bondsman loses his money.
Right.
And, of course, Yaphet Kotto
That is
plays
the
a
plot of like
Fed.
a half a dozen movies from the 80s to the 2000s.
Yeah. So he plays a Fed, an FBI agent that's going in on all of this, and they've got surveillance on the bail bondsman, and it's really great, but it is different from all of these in that it doesn't shy away from being R-rated.
Right.
So I probably can't really do the lines here,
No.
but they're very good. It's very funny. This all of his life is kind of eating away at Robert De Niro, and Charles Grodin spends the entire trip basically poking a stick through the bars, and it's just amazing because he fakes not being able to fly, so they get stuck on the train, and then the mobsters and the competing bounty hunter come after him, and they can't be on the train, so then the bus doesn't work out, and then they're stealing cars and hopping on the freight train finally in the end.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
So it's really a crazy great 80s movie. It's one of those movies that probably would be completely different now because you'd have the cell phone
Right.
would fix most of the things that they couldn't.
That's a really good point. There are so many things that in movies that we love that if they were filmed in today, it's like, well,
The plot devices wouldn't make any sense.
They wouldn't.
You're just, why don't you just
get out your phone.
get out your phone, get...
Yes, some things anachronize.
Yeah.
to
Why didn't you call
work today.
AAA when the car broke down?
Yeah, you can't pay for the bus tickets. Well, just Apple Pay for it.
Right. Where's your Venmo at?
Yeah,
You know?
Absolutely. Where's your debit card, for goodness sakes?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. In that, I just thought of like a half dozen other movies I got to put on my list.
Yeah. So I always love Midnight Run. It's one that won't be on regular cable channels much, but if you Every once in a while it pops up on the Showtime or something.
You know,
if you have
regular
that, or-
cable channels are getting more and more open to language.
Yes.
So it's possible.
WGN left a lot of the language in Die Hard 2 last night.
Yeah, they don't usually let the F-bomb drop, but
They
that's
left everything else in.
they'll leave,
But
they'll leave
you know,
everything else.
I have noticed that in non-premium cable a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, certainly, if you watch stuff on Netflix and what have you, like series that are being produced nowadays, F-bombs all over the place.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, that's subscription.
That's correct. That's
But
how you,
honestly, that's where most of the good content is nowadays.
Well, that's exactly
on,
right.
On those subscription services.
amen. That's really good.
So were 5 of the 6 of those comedies?
yeah,
I think so.
My
Mine
Agate
were.
and the Ecstasy was the only one that was a drama in that one.
That's right. And there were comedic bits in it, but, you know, that's true of any drama.
Well,
But
exactly.
yeah. Well, you know, that's interesting. That 5 of the 6 were comedic. Now, not all of my list is comedic, although I would say 1, 2, 3. Actually, I would say most of my list is, come to think of it. With the exception of the historicals that are on my list. And you add in the half dozen or so that I thought of while you were saying that, most of which were also comedic.
Yeah.
Mine are mostly comedic. Even the ones that are not the 30s kind of stuff. Like anything black and white, oh my God, I'll watch.
Yeah.
Just because
Yeah.
it just, to me, it's better.
Most of
And-
mine are not. Most of mine are not comedic. It's rare.
You
for me
love
to-
epics, though.
I do. I love
you
that.
will
I
stop
love-
and watch almost any epic film.
Exactly, and anything historical, I'm probably going to give it a.
To me, it's got to be really good. It's got to hit
That's
a
correct.
really gut response for me when it's not a comedy. But I find that interesting that 5 of the 6 are comedic. So we have a very good friend who'll be visiting us next week. Well, yes, for us next week. And he is one of those weird people that hates I Love Lucy.
Say it isn't so, sir.
He has too much empathy for Lucy, and he feels bad for her. He cannot grasp that kind of comedy.
She has too much splaining to do.
Yeah, apparently.
So,
So
but most of Lucy's things are of her own making.
it doesn't matter.
Not
It
like
does-
she's being put upon by the universe or anything.
That's
I get that. So he and I have never agreed because I like comedies. I can watch a comedy all day long. I mean, to me, that's because that's my escape. So when you think about what we talked about, this is so typical of us in many ways, but so unlike what we talk about. Because you know we talk about those pointless discussions of eternal questions, right?
We're heavy on the pointless part this episode.
That's true. And you know, now in entertainment, comedy, drama, that is eternal.
It is.
So
That's
you know that's
right.
still topical. And when you look at the age of some of these movies, that's pretty eternal by today's standards.
Yeah, because these things have stood the test of time.
They have. But I just find it interesting because I think that people, and I'm not saying he is not an intellectual. I'm not saying that at all. So if he ever listens to this episode, that's not what I'm saying.
No, he is. Yeah.
But I think certain people often will gravitate towards things that are so unlike the seriousness of their thoughts as their escape.
That's very true.
That's why I think guys like us, we're also drawn to the nerdy stuff. You know, that's our escapist.
Yeah.
You know, we're very grounded in reality. We're very grounded in the meaning of life stuff.
Right, exactly.
Therefore, our escapist tends to be either fantasy or farce, just to keep the alliteration going there. You know, because we like the science fiction. We like the sword and sorcery stuff. We also like the Cary Grant stuff,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
It's
But I
just-
found that to be another common thread through these films too. Is some of these have some really great actors who had huge career, decades. Of,
Oh, yeah.
of career.
Every one of the folks the stars that in these movies we've mentioned are forces unto themselves. I mean,
Yep.
Robert De Niro, Cary Grant, Charlton Heston. I mean, for goodness sakes.
Rex Harrison.
Rex Harrison.
Rex Harrison, especially.
Oh, yeah.
talking about a great actor.
Clint Eastwood.
Clint
I mean,
Eastwood.
lots of really
Donald
good.
Sutherland. Donald Sutherland's still making movies. I mean, his career is going on almost 60 years.
Yep, still doing them.
And,
Yeah.
and so is
I still find it fascinating, though, that 50% of our movies had Cary Grant in them.
It just kind of happened that way.
It did. Yeah, you were the only holdout. But that's all right. You picked some really good... You had the Chuck movie, though.
That's correct.
So,
yeah,
yeah.
Put the Chuck movie in.
Yeah, most Charlton Heston movies are kind of make our list. We don't usually pass him by. He's that good.
Yeah. So, and that was great. That was a great
That's
set of
fun
movies.
stuff.
Watch every one of those if you've never seen them. Oh my gosh, you got to see them.
Francis, what's on tap for our next episode,
You
brother?
guys know we've got a Hoopa Jube coming up?
Again?
Again, yes, we've got this.
Love the
Hoopa
Hoopa Jubes.
Hoopa Jubes are those odd, weird. You never know where we're going to go with them. They kind of fall outside the norm.
You only never know where we're going with them because they don't necessarily fit into an existing week's topic. Because I don't think you know where we're going with any of this stuff.
Well, yeah,
anymore.
that's right. Yeah, exactly. But we're doing the one we should have done at the very beginning. We're talking bourbon exclusively next time. Yeah,
excellent.
We're actually gonna talk about bourbon is featured in every episode that we do in some fashion. We've never done one on bourbon. Not to say it's the only one we'll ever do on bourbon, mind you, but we're gonna do that one next.
We're gonna hit being. I foresee that we'll be talking bourbon snobbery. I think at some point
We're working our way towards that. Yes,
Yes.
we are. It's going to be.
we have like a definition of bourbon we stick with. We hew to that line.
That's
Yes.
correct. Yes.
Anybody who has a different definition, legal though it may be,
You're wrong.
is wrong.
That's right.
Thanks for being with us here every week at Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Be sure to spread the word on your social media accounts. Follow us and retweet us. We are on Instagram and on Twitter at Snakes and Otters.
Let your friends know that they can find us on Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Just search Snakes and Otters Podcast to find us, and please remember to leave us your comments and reviews. It helps people find us.
And you can always send us an email at snakesandotterspodcast@gmail.com.
I'm Martin.
I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis. Catch us next week. Same snake time, same otter channel.